Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody today. Very, very excited to have people here today for this discussion about content discovery in the age of AI, how to get found when algorithms decide what's seen. The purpose here is to talk about the real dynamic we're all experiencing. Discovery has shifted. It's been shifting over the last 2 years. Increasingly, machines are the first audiences, as we know, not people. So we all need to understand, how do we deal with this? How does content earn trust when AI systems are interpreting it before humans ever get a chance to do it and before a buyer ever clicks a link? We know AI systems don't just rank content, they interpret it, they summarize it, they shape what buyers trust. So the question isn't just, can buyers find us? It's, when AI explains us, does it get us right? This is going to be a conversation, not a slide deck. And we want your perspective in the mix. So you'll be feel free to enter your comments via chat, and we'll take those questions either along the way, but more likely in a block of time we've reserved at the end. I'm very pleased to welcome our two expert guests. First, Megan Cabrera is VP of Marketing Operations at Sophos. Megan, can you share just a little bit more about what you do at Sophos?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bill. I'm really pleased to be here. So my role is Global Marketing Operations Leader at Sophos. I also have our web strategy and operations team. And so that team includes SEO, AI search, a lot of our, kind of content and UX strategy on the website as well. And then I've got, kind of your more typical marketing operations teams, data reporting, analytics, which feeds a lot of the data and reporting into AI and web as well.
Awesome. Thank you. And Mar Carrazzo. Mar was on in the backstage area, and hopefully he's still got sound.
I'm Mar from Philips. I lead our global digital team for web and content. So similar to Megan, my team and I lead our global content. So we look and we work with our businesses. So we have many businesses within Philips to make sure that we optimize content and make sure we have search visibility across also. That includes content managers in my team, web and SEO managers also within my team.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Sorry for that little sound reverb there, but I think we've got it all fixed. So once again, feel free to enter your comments via your questions during chat, and we'll answer them certainly in the live discussion that takes place at the end. But if we can take some of them along the way, we'll go for it. So first, what I'd like to do is get a pulse check for the folks here in the audience, and that'll help us set the stage for where you're at today and what you're most interested in tackling as your challenges. So question for you via poll. What worries you most right now about how AI finds and presents your company and your brand? 4 choices. You worried about losing visibility? You worried about losing accuracy or control of your messaging? You worried about losing credibility and trust? Or you're not sure how AI even evaluates your content today? So you could quickly just vote on one of these 4. We'll be very interested to see how the audience feels. And very interesting.
Wow, it's really neck and neck.
Yeah, neck and neck. What do you think of this, Megan?
It's exactly the 3 that I would think, but I'm so curious what's going to surface as the winner.
Yeah, it looks like losing visibility is coming out as number 1. And we will come back to that later. So let's just flag this, that losing visibility is neck and neck with not sure how AI even evaluates our content. So thank you, audience, for participating in this. That's our first of several polls. So with that, let's kick into the very first question. Before this was even called AIO or AI search, let's go back 2 years or whatever amount of time. What problem were you trying to solve that led you here, Mark?
Yeah, so I think really good question, Bill. So I think even we call it like AIO or AI search. For us, it was really about like 2 things. So one, we first of all, like context, we compete in a very regulated industry as well, and competitive one. And for us, it was really first all about visibility, of course, and making sure that we are seen, our content is seen, and also I think in general also like optimizing it also on search. So regardless of where it's coming from, obviously like it started with Google, and now it has evolved over time as well.
Great. And Megan, how about for you? Did AI force a change, or did it expose perhaps some existing weakness in how your content was structured or surfaced, but then AI just sort of magnified the weakness?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things was over time we had realized, as we were optimizing for SEO, we tended to create a lot more product specific content. And so, I think this has kind of taken us back to a focus on some of the higher level thought leadership issue led content that, is really strong performing in LLMs, relatively speaking. So I think that was a helpful, as we started to kind of dig into what are the kinds of prompts that Sophos shows up in, and are they all branded, or are they, more non-branded awareness prompts? We really had an opportunity to kind of pivot and shift the types of content that we were creating. And in fact, one of the things that we just did was we had our blog on a subdomain, and we've brought it onto our main domain because that blog content is so crucial for us in terms of being able to show up in LLMs.
Nice. Nice. And was it about traffic or trust or performance that led some of that, or a combination of the above?
I mean, for us, it wasn't necessarily traffic. I mean, we're not optimizing for traffic, right? We're optimizing for more quality of traffic, if you will. So I do think it was that level of trust. And, interestingly, it correlated with some of the brand surveys that we had taken that said, hey, so people know who Sophos it is, but what do they do, right? What is their offering? Why is this an important product for us to have in our tech stack? For cybersecurity. And so that became really crucial for us to very accurately answer those questions for people who are searching.
Love it. Love it. So let's fast forward and let's talk about how you're organizing this today inside your company. So in our prep, I found very interesting that Megan, you mentioned you simply call it AI search. Like, what do you call it internally? Why is that naming? Talk a little bit about why that naming matters internally.
Yeah. When we started this initiative really in earnest, kind of in January of 2025, so it's been over a full year for us that we've been hyper focused on this. What we started to realize is people were saying things like AEO, GEO, AIO, and there were kind of different definitions for each of those acronyms. And so what I didn't want teams focused on an acronym. I wanted teams focused on what is the goal? And the goal is it doesn't matter whether someone's searching traditionally in Google or searching in an LLM, Sophos should be showing up, and we should be showing up with relevant, accurate content. And so we leaned in on AI search to just make things easy across teams. And thankfully, our senior management team and our CEO has leaned in on that term as well.
Love it. And how about for you, Mara? I see you smiling at this one. Have you seen how defining it in a certain way can lead teams to maybe execute too narrowly?
Yeah, so I found it very relatable when Megan mentioned that it's like, what do we call it? AIO, GEO, and like for us, that was also like a very real for us. And more than the definition, also for us, perhaps it is kind of the understanding, or also perhaps lack thereof, that actually kind of narrows teams into like what they're supposed to do. I think for us, in the company, for us was really about taking everyone into that journey as well, and to that understanding also of what all these acronyms and terms mean. And so that's kind of where we are on the journey. So perhaps we're quite newer into this space than perhaps Megan had mentioned, especially on like GEO or AIO. And kind of now we're together with my team, we're bringing everyone in on exactly like what this means. So like kind of upskilling everyone also to be more knowledgeable in that space.
No, I love that. I love that. In terms of the upskilling and the definition, if I may kind of probe you a little bit further, I'm curious, for either of you, do you view AI search as a brand protection strategy, a growth lever, both? Just sort of curious how you think about it and talk about it internally.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for us, we look at it both, right? So it's a way, I think one of the things that has been mentioned about AI search relative to SEO is that it's a bit more of going back to almost digital PR, right? So you just want your brand mentioned everywhere, and you want your brand mentioned right next to, the little snippet that says the elevator pitch of what you do, so that you're just constantly, imprinting that into people's minds. And so that's a big one for us, of course, but also we are seeing this drive growth, because when we look at our AI referral traffic that comes through on the site, we see very high engagement rates. And we do see, that from the most part, they've skipped the consideration phase, right? They did that in the LLM, and now they're coming to speak to Sophos to buy our product.
Yeah. Very interesting. Skip the consideration phase in the LLM and just came straight to you. What's your perspective on that, Mark?
Yeah, I think what it definitely has done is kind of shorten the buying process. So in that sense, it is like a growth lever for us, because then it kind of just like makes the velocity faster. But at the same time, also, when Megan mentioned like PR, in AI search, what we've also realized in terms of like how you are referred, or like when you're most visible, is actually kind of the irony of it is like it becomes like more like digital or AI focused, but actually it goes back to kind of human ways of how you refer people or how you refer things, right? So for example, when you ask, where to go, what places, where to eat, or like where you ask like, which doctor you should. These are the same basics now that the way that AI refers to you is it credible, is it expert, authoritative, trustworthiness. So these are like kind of I think what we've realized also, how it's becomes again also like a way of PR as well.
Right. Love it. So now that we've talked a little bit about how you define it internally and how you think about it as this kind of combination of growth lever and brand, and you're seeing measurable impact from it, which is great. Let's go to what you've actually learned about how AI interprets content. Alex wrote in the chat, if I paraphrase correctly, worried if you even have the right content. And so I think oftentimes most teams maybe assume AI is kind of like just a better search engine, but that's really not the case. What have you learned, Megan, about how AI systems interpret content that genuinely surprise you, like maybe in terms of structure, not just the old world of keywords?
Yeah. So one of the things that is so interesting to me and fascinating is, and I think it's because of how agents interpret data versus people, but a lot of what we see come up in citations is like listicle and comparison content. And honestly, I thought listicles were dead, after, I don't know, BuzzFeed in the early 2000s, but they're very much back, and that's what's being surfaced up with the LLMs. I find that to be curious too, because a lot of them are not necessarily from a brand's website. They're coming in from, third party sites that are putting these things out there as well. And so, that's where with SEO, you did have a lot more around driving, those 10 blue links really drove back to your website. In this case, a lot. I mean, I've seen a stat around 85% of what is cited for your brand is coming from third party sources, which is very interesting to try to tackle. So, I don't know whether that trend will persist or change, but I do think that's definitely around, as much as we talk about intelligence, artificial intelligence, which is what the LLMs are, they're not as intelligent as people at getting to the context. And so I think that's why they look for those very simply formatted pieces of content, because it's easy for the LLM to interpret that.
Yeah. Got it. And how about Mar, from your side, have you had to rethink how content is organized? not just written, so AI systems understand your authority?
Yeah, definitely. I think for us, as I mentioned, like we have a lot of businesses within the company. We create a lot of content. And so what we also have like emphasized or emphasizing now to our teams is that, you know, instead of creating more content, actually we have to optimize more and connecting to what Megan said, that this means like our headlines easily readable by AI? Are they bullet points or lists instead of long-winded like articles, which used to work for like some pages that as long as you have like more than 350 words, then that's and you can show up more. But now it's something that's easy to be read and crawled and like parsed through by AI, and that one is what works. So also making sure that you have fresh data, you have accurate data as well. So that's also something that you can do with existing pages and really just like optimize them.
Yep, got it. And one more follow on. Do you think about them as in the old world? We often just had sort of a blog post on this and blog post on that and content that. Do you think about it now in different ways of sort of structure versus isolated pieces of content? Just curious if sort of does connected content matter now than it did before?
Yeah, go ahead, Megan.
Well, I was just going to say, I do think it does. And one of the things that we have is, on our site, we have a whole section called Cybersecurity Explained. And that has a whole bunch of different related definitional content to help people, help end users to understand, complex cybersecurity concepts, but also for the LLMs and especially around long tail. And so I think when you lump those things together under a similar schema, you do see positive effects.
I love it.
Yeah, I think for us as well, I think that's a really important aspect also of like having connected ones. That also means that if you're able to establish yourself as like a credible source also and an expert in that field, that also brings you up also or being cited. And I guess this is like not new with AI search itself, but then I think it's now more important than ever. Going back to the point of like, it's whatever is easiest for them to say that this is like credible content. And then the concept that Google also had of like EAT, which is like expertise, experience, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, that still applies now, and perhaps it even more so now that you're kind of your content across the site, because AI can easily like look through it in seconds. Then it just needs to show that like you're not just creating one content about this thing. It's like you're the expert in this field based on all the pages that you have in that site.
Awesome. You're the expert in the field based on all the pages. Yep.
You know what I think is really interesting too is it's not just your core website anymore either. It's your knowledge base, your support site, your community site as well, because, these LLMs look at those together, right? As kind of one, in our case, Sophos entity. And so, it's also making sure that formatting and schema kind of runs across all of those different sites that you have as well, which has been, pretty crucial for us in terms of moving the needle.
Excellent. I love that insight. And that's a perfect segue to our next polling question for the audience. So for those of you in the live studio audience, we have another polling question for you. And this is, what's the hardest part of making content work in an AI first world? Your choices: clarity and structure, consistency across teams and regions, credibility, sourcing and accuracy, measurement and proof, internal alignment and ownership. For those who feel they're not sure you have the right content at all, I would probably put that under maybe internal alignment and ownership if nobody owns it, but you may use your own judgment on this one. So very, very, very interesting. Not that I'm projecting who the winner is going to be, but it does look like there is one that is in the lead. We'll give it just another 20, 30 seconds for the rest of the people to vote. Had no idea what was going to come back from this one. So let me state the result first, and then we'll discuss this for a little bit. Credibility, sourcing, and accuracy. 46% say that's the hardest part of making content work in an AI first world. Way ahead of even the number 2, which is measurement and proof. Any reactions to this, Megan or Mar? This is surprising.
For me, not too surprising at all. Actually, I would put those two, the top 2, as the same top 2 that I would have. Also, like looking at the teams that I work with and talk to, I think there's not a lot of like internal like skepticism actually, because people also see it that they do this also on like in their personal lives, like they do AI search. So it kind of like, yeah, it makes sense. We have to do that. I'm already doing that in my outside of work, and for sure our customers are also doing that. Definitely on the credibility, sourcing, and accuracy would be one. Going back to like you have accurate data and you have credible sources, you need to make sure also that one thing that we also emphasize in our team, so create content, is that like now that we're AI search, it actually doesn't mean that you can just outsource your creation of content to AI. In fact, more so ever now that it needs to be human created or like expert created, is because AI will know it goes to your makes your credibility lower if you actually are just like copy pasting content that's like made by AI. And on the measurement and proofing part, I think that's really like where a big obstacle right now, because right now there are different tools, measurement trackings also, and I think that's something that I think a lot of companies can relate to. That it's still very much experimental at this point, and what the how to measure it, and like what would say is a good good like score or like good KPIs actually. That's still something that we're also working with right now. Unlike like we have Google Analytics, for example, we have a lot of data and it's all about interpreting it. Now even the LLMs or like the AI engines, we don't have as much data for that yet, or it's not like easily available as to be for Google Analytics.
Yeah, and I think from a credibility, sourcing, and accuracy perspective, we struggle with this as a legacy company that's been around for a long time. On the plus side, that means there's a lot of Sophos content out there. On the negative side, that means some of that Sophos content isn't quite accurate relative to how we're operating today, right? Because, obviously things have fundamentally changed, and we've grown as a business significantly. And so, I think I've actually heard of other businesses essentially cut off so that LLMs are not looking at, portions of their historical data prior to certain dates. I fundamentally disagree with that. I don't think that's the right approach, but I do think that, it forces teams to really work together, like I said, across that entire digital ecosystem. So, not just your core website, but across that communities, support, knowledge base. If you've got a partner portal, those things really have to be fundamentally working together and updated and accurate.
No, thank you. That really, really great insight. So let's move off the poll and let's chat a little bit about the organizational dynamics. This is obviously something that's moving really fast. And Mara, why don't I start with you? What's been the biggest organizational obstacle to making AI search work at scale? Is it clarity of who owns it? Is there one person? Are there multiple people who own it? Is it consistency across business units? Philips is obviously a big company. Measurement, internal skepticism. What are the biggest organizational obstacles to making this work at scale?
Yeah, good question. I think for us, it's definitely, as I mentioned, not internal skepticism. In fact, we get a lot of support. In fact, a lot of the our leaders are like, okay, let's drive this further, which is great. We have everyone's support. Now, I would say like the obstacle would really be around like the tracking and making sense of the data, because now you have had a lot of like SEO experts, for example, or even our like analysts, data analysts also, and like the ones looking at our insights analysts also are also new to this space, right? So then it's now looking at like, okay, from all this data that we gather, what are the actions, and actually like, are those actions leading to like better results as well? So that's kind of where we are right now, and just making sure that we're all aligned in terms of like looking at the right metrics, looking at the right KPIs, and then therefore also looking at the right actions.
Great. And
And
Megan, no, okay.
I was going to say I agree with Mar on that alignment because, one of the biggest pieces to this is honestly just change management. We have to change the way that we're thinking about it. It's not just one individual from an SEO perspective looking at keywords and impressions and coming back with recommendations, right? So, for us, we've got a tiger team of individuals, and it's really more of a holistic content strategy that we're driving. But in order to do this content strategy right, we also have to bring people along, help them understand what is the difference between traditional search and AI search, make sure that we've got that credibility and that people within the organization believe in this as well, which is fundamental to getting teams on board and getting everybody rowing in the same direction.
I love it. I love that notion of like, how do you get the teams on board and rowing in the same direction? If I may go a step further, is there something that you think is a catalyst besides the wave in the market? Like, has there been a clear payoff that kind of galvanized or motivated people when they see here is a win or a payoff that got people especially sort of motivated, that helps you overcome sort of the friction of kind of organizational friction?
Yeah, I mean, for us, when we actually onboarded our AI measurement tool that we're using and then started to see results, I agree with Mara. A lot of this is experimentational at this point, but we had to baseline somewhere, right? And so once we baselined it, and then, we've been measuring month over month since last April on that. And, as we started to kind of see, we focused in on one of our product sets, started building really relevant content for one of our product sets, and we started to see those increases happen over time. I think that felt really encouraging to the team because, they started to think, wow, okay, this actually can work. And, we can see the benefit of this for the business.
Love it. How about for you, Mar? Did you have any similar kind of revelation or a kind of inspiration point for people?
Yeah, I think definitely one is like kind of that progression over time. The great thing is like some tools that you'll have on AI visibility. You can track also like week on week, like what's your like position, your visibility, all these things. And you can also like compare it with like different whether it's the competitors or like certain topics that you want to focus on. I think that's what really also encourages people to do it. So then having more data and making sense of the data always helps people also to kind of like go along with the journey as well.
Oh, great. Let me probe a little further more, and then I'll come back to Megan. The metrics and visibility is so important. We're all metrics driven. I have to be in marketing today. And so can I go a little deeper with you, and then I'll come back to Megan. You mentioned tracking over time. Megan, you said the same thing about how once you started, the tool started showing this. Are you measuring just visibility over time? Is there a KPI or set of KPIs you're looking at? Are you benchmarking against your competitors, which you can do in many of the tools today? Is there a metric you wish you had, but you don't today? Mar, why don't I let you go first, and then we'll pass it over to Megan.
Yeah, great. I think all of the above was to your question. So like I think the AI visibility score, I think definitely would help. Also, like that also means like visibility, relative to your competitors. So that's also like some we're looking at. are also as a company wanting to kind of dissect further is because it's like we have like so many aspects to what the brand stands for, the company stands for. There's a corporate angle to it. There's like kind of a consumer aspect to it. There's also like a more like a business aspect to things. Like, how do you make sure that you kind of like are able to have an accurate assessment or like data of actually what it means when you're looking at your branded company, if it has so many product categories, if it has so many like businesses within it, because it already depends on like what you then kind of get from those tools, right? So they will just extract what they see, but it's up to you also still to kind of check if it's as accurate as it should be.
Wonderful. Megan, how about for you?
Yeah. So for us, what we've done is we've seeded a set of what we call canonical prompts into our AI search tool. And so those are always on prompts that we're constantly looking at across our different product sets. And then in aggregate, we have an AI scorecard. So we look at visibility, we look at citations, and then we also look at AI referral traffic. And we've been roughly in line with what other people have been seeing in their metrics. I'm sort of constantly talking to other people and asking other people and other businesses what they're seeing. And we find that we fall roughly in line with benchmarks there. We also do track our visibility against our competitors in those prompts. I'd say to your final point, which is what do I wish that I had? When I'm saying we're seeding those, 700-ish canonical prompts, I have no idea if those are the prompts that people are actually asking about, right? And so, this is where, yes, we use a combination of first parties. So we track customer and prospect calls from sales and SDRs, and we feed that back into our prompt catalog. But I really wish we had data around what are the actual prompts and the semantic language structure that people are using to, ask LLMs. And so I'm hopeful that at some point we'll get that data. But for now, we're kind of operating in the dark, which is why we've seeded these prompts and we're kind of monitoring the same ones time and time again, because I feel like if you just keep adding a different prompt library all the time, you're moving the goalpost. And so you're not going to really understand whether what you're doing is effective or not.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, if these are changing week to week, what is your base level, especially with that tremendous number of prompts you mentioned? Like,
yeah,
how do you know if you use set of prompts X in week 1 and now you're using set of prompts Y in week 4? Gosh, what is that? What is that? That telling you, do different engines give you different results? And just, how stable are you finding the results over time?
Well, and actually it's a great question because we track, I should have mentioned too, we track across 5 different core LLMs. And so we also look at the results within each specific LLM as well. You can absolutely see changes in visibility when changes in algorithms or an update in model comes through. And so, there is a little bit of inconsistency there as well. When OpenAI releases a new model, we definitely do see little tweaks in the visibility because it's a new, pre-trained model at that point.
Yeah. How about for you, Mar? I see your head nodding up and down.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna agree to that as well. Like, we're seeing that depending on the model as well. I think these tools also help you like see like what was your score across those different models, and also like this different AI engines also have different ways to kind of cite you, right? So then it's also not just like one size fits all almost. Unlike perhaps before in like just like where Google dominated the search, it's kind of you kind of just look at that. But then if you want to be visible across all these like AI engines, they have different ways of like what brings one up in like their like there's what's cited. And so there's also not just like one thing that you just have to do. I think that's what the tough thing about it as well.
Totally. Totally. So let's we're starting to get some questions from our audience, but let's keep going with our next just couple of of final questions, and then we'll open it to a much broader audience Q&A. So, given that AI is sort of now typically the first reader of our content, which is just the way it works, what marketing habits actually become dangerous? Is it inconsistency a risk? Is producing more content, does it actually increase risk if it's not structured well? Can clever messaging backfire if clarity is missing? Mar, why don't you go first, and then I'll ask Megan.
Yeah, I think like to your question around like what would be like perhaps what's becoming dangerous, maybe like for me, like I know we're like all like marketeers, but I think it also pains me to also like say, but I think our marketing jargon and all these like clever speak may actually be detrimental, more than but they just I think like in the AI search world, like the old adage or saying is like truer than ever, which is like be clear and then be clever.
Yeah,
I love that.
I absolutely agree with that. I'd say the other piece is some of the ways that in which we had presented formatted data in the past. So a good example of this is feature tables, right? So you've got a list of features on the left, and you've got, maybe you and some competitors, and you're saying check, check, check versus X for your competitor. Agents cannot read that the same as a human does, right? The context for them is not there. And so I think, we the risk of almost making things beautiful, right? Creating these infographics or creating these feature tables. And the reality of it is that beauty is not being consumed by the LLM. And, so you kind of have to take a step back and go, well, it doesn't have to be beautiful. It has to be readable.
Yeah, that's is that a rude awakening for people, say, in the creative teams who are used to making stuff beautiful?
I think so, right? I mean, I know we've definitely have our fair share of infographics, and we're kind of constantly pushing our creative teams to go, okay, you cannot have text and images, right? The text has to be outside of images. Does that infographic actually show up for an LLM, or are we just deciding that this is only for human consumption, right? And I think it's just being more thoughtful in the decisions that you make and the content formats that you put out there.
Great. This is an interesting.
Go
ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I think like it's still like being creative is still important. In fact, I probably would argue also that it's more important than ever to also like differentiate yourself also from all the other content also that that's in the internet. So then it's also like that's why perhaps where the creative comes into play as well. And we also have to remember that like while we're also make visible through AI, we will, and the ones who will go to your sites or whatever will still be humans because they were led by the search, and perhaps like a beautifully designed page will still matter for them to actually kind of make a purchase or make that consideration as well. So it's like I think it would still be important to have the place also like for the humans who will eventually be led to those sites.
I really agree with that. And thank you for saying that, because I do not want to knock our creative teams, right? There's still very much a place for beauty and creativity.
Oh, I agree tremendously. On this topic, there is a question that was posed in the chat. Have either of you seen measurable differences? And it may be difficult to measure, but I'd be just curious, as per the person who posed the question, have you seen any measurable differences in performance between AI-generated content and expert-led, insight-driven content? The person who wrote the question was just curious if you've observed any gap or differences.
Is the question more around AI created content versus more expert led research type content?
Yeah, I think that is correct. Like AI generated content versus expert led sort of research, insight driven content by a human.
Yeah, so very much so. I mean, honestly, I think there's a place for where AI created content lives and where expert led, research, very stats heavy type of content lives too. And for us, it's a very careful balance. Like I mentioned, we've got that cybersecurity explained section on our site. That's our more AI created or AI driven content. Whereas, we release, for example, our active adversary report coming out in a couple of weeks. Absolutely, that is a human led initiative. And that's always going to perform better than AI created content. But I do think there is a place for AI created content.
Okay. How about your perspective, Mark?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really like looking at your channels, and it's similar to like I guess the basics also of marketing, right? So like depending on your touch point. So for example, if we do think we know like knowing what are the levers also that actually brings you up for AI. One of them is like that you're seen as like expert led and insight driven. And then those pages, then you definitely need to have like the more like human created and like really show expertise. But there may be times where also like AI generated content is essential also if it's like time is of the essence as well, and it kind of like that and it's something that you have perhaps your own media that you can also push for. There's like so many variables also to it that it can also there's a as what Megan said, there's a time and a place also for it.
Right. So I'm going to have one more final question, and those in the audience, feel free to add your questions in the chat, and we will get to them in sequence. There are a few comments there that I'll call out. But my last formal question, though, if we don't have enough questions from the audience, I'll give you some more. Is really looking forward. Let's just say people who are here feel a sense of the urgency of doing something better than they're doing right now. Megan first, and then Mar. If an enterprise team, or I'm saying enterprise, it could be mid-market, or but let's just say an enterprise or mid-market team could change one thing in the next 90 days to become more visible and trusted by AI systems. What would you have to do? People always like to say, gosh, this is what I could do tomorrow or next week or next month. So somebody wanted to make a big impact in the next 90 days and could change one thing. What would you advise them to do?
Yeah, so I have two recommendations on that. Do a quick content audit on your site. It does not need to be every single URL, but think about, core URLs like your product page, your solutions pages, the things that really matter to you. Look at when was the last time that page was updated. If it was longer than 12 months ago, absolutely. Update your statistics, add more relevant review information that you might have. It can be as simple as that. You don't have to completely rebuild the page. If you don't have FAQs on product and solution pages yet, absolutely add those to every one of your product and solution pages. And this is actually kind of a happy byproduct of AI that's good for people too. I love the proliferation of FAQs on people's websites. Now I actually use them quite a bit myself as well when I'm perusing websites. I think the second thing to really pay attention to is honestly just be Googling different things about your company. So one of the things we stumbled upon recently is we started to Google, okay, how do you activate a Sophos license? And we realized that some of our documentation was driving people to sign up for a free trial to activate their license. Well, that muddies our free trial conversion information that we're looking at. And so we've since remedied that. But those are kind of some quick and easy things that you can do that also have downstream positive operational impacts as well.
How about for you, Mar?
Yeah, I think for me, it would really going back to perhaps one of our first discussion is like review and optimize your existing content. So it doesn't need like you don't need additional for that one. Connected to what Megan said, it's like making sure that you have fresh data and content as well, that it's not like more than 12 months, for example, or that's it's still accurate, it still has the right claims, it still has the right information as well. And then perhaps like if resource is also limited, then you can just actually the best way is to check with you don't need all these search visibility tools, because you can also actually check yourself, right? And then see there actually like what comes up depending on like what you search, or like why are we not cited there, and then see exactly like which ones work on, perhaps. And then perhaps last is kind of just think, once you know like what are like actually your actual buyer questions and prompts, and actually some of these tools also allow you to do that, then create content that actually just answers those actual prompts or topics. And then I think that would be an easy win also.
No,
for you.
love it. We're going to start answering questions from the audience. Before we do that, let me just quickly summarize a couple of the key points, and then we'll go into even more questions from the audience. We obviously know AI is the first interpreter of our brand. Clarity, as our speakers have said, beats cleverness, and unfortunately, it also beats beauty. I'm really thinking about your content strategy, what you create. Megan's given some great examples, how you structure and organize that in these kind of areas of expertise for your company, or the way that people gather, whether there be support, communities, other things, really, really important. People said at the in response to our top first question about the biggest challenge, it was losing visibility, and people not even being sure how AI evaluates your content were big issues. If people are intrigued by this and want to continue the discussion, first, I'm putting my LinkedIn contact information in the chat. Please connect with me. For anybody on this call, if you'd like a free market intelligence report that can tell you how you're ranking and showing on AI engines, we're very delighted to run one of those and provide it to you. You'll get a link for that subsequently in a follow-up for this. But it's a great way for you to just understand, where am I at, where am I falling? And we do have capabilities for content strategy to help you think through that and what you can do. You'll get an invite for that in a subsequent email. But if you're really eager, you can just write to me via LinkedIn. Please connect via LinkedIn, as we'd love to keep the conversation going. Let's go to your questions. So there have been a lot of these. I'm going to go. Somebody was asking about tools. More than one person asked, what tools do you use to check AI visibility for your brand? So, okay, there we go. The question's even popping up. So Megan and Mar, do you want to chat a little bit about what tools you use?
Yeah, sure. So right now we're using a tool called Scrunch AI. I have assessed every single tool out there. Honestly, we are also moving to a tool called AirOps, which I'm really loving their construct. They've got a bit more of the measurement plus workflow capability in that tool. I'm not a paid promotion, by the way. This is just me, really loving what I've seen from them. And so, we are probably going to be moving from one to another. Although I have to say, a lot of these have a fairly inexpensive version of their tool. So, we may actually maintain a couple just to kind of keep a little bit of a breadth of seeing what the differences are between the tools.
Yeah, and for us, we work with SEMrush for our tool. So they also have an AI visibility tool. So we're doing that. We've also worked with them for also like the for SEO tools that we have as well. And we also have different tools to check if your content, for example, there's like a scoring also of how good your content is.
Great. Let's go to another question. Samantha asked, can the LLM pick up on PDFs data, for example, insight reports?
Yeah, LLMs should be able to pick up on PDF data. I think the structure of the PDF matters a bit more, in the sense that what you're looking for is, if it's a fairly long PDF, you actually really want a TLDR section at the top, too long to read, right? So summarizing that, and then having really kind of formatted H1, H2 type headings for your sections, but it can pick up on PDFs.
Great. Next question from Kimberly, which I think is all these are great questions. Actually, this one would be from Kimberly. How should mindset shift around direct attribution tracking of leads, with so much of the mid-funnel experience happening in the dark? That was the main question. They had a secondary question, which is, what metrics should we focus on to measure success, channel or content attributions? There's a kind of two parts to that question. Maybe we'll tackle the first one. How should mindset shift around attribution tracking of leads, and how do you track it? I'm curious, both Mar, why don't we go with you first, and then Megan?
Yeah, really good questions as well. So, and I think it also when all of this came into like play, right? Like we've also like stopped looking at, like, for example, what we used to measure like with clicks. And so also then that's not like the primary kind of metric, because we obviously like expect traffic to go down. But also that means, right, that like your marketing qualified leads or anyone that goes through your sites and eventually convert, actually that's more relevant than ever, because what we're seeing is that actually there's because those who actually go to your sites or wherever they lead them to are more interested, because AI actually answer their questions, and so they're more likely to actually go to your sites. So I think that's it's the shift, I would say, is kind of like, don't be afraid that there's some metrics that go down. It's actually like, at the end of the day, is like, what do you, for your business, is the most important one. If it's like the leads that will then to be converted, it will still be the same as well for in the AI search world.
Great.
Yeah, I think, this is an interesting question, because this change has been happening for a long time, not just because of AI search, right? But the direct attribution and being more of the dark funnel. I mean, Sixth Sense has been talking about that for 10 years, right? So, one of the things that we look at here is, hey, if we're ungating more of our content, if we're exposing more of that, which is great, because people can do their research, as well as LLMs can help people to facilitate that research. We try to expose a bit more around, okay, but who are those anonymous businesses coming to our site? How can we potentially personalize to those as well, even if they haven't, revealed themselves to us yet? I think the other thing that's growing in importance, and we can't deep dive on this right now, but marketing mix modeling. So how do you look at the correlation in what you're spending in marketing against the effectiveness across the breadth of revenue? And that's a big one, especially if you've got a channel component. It's always been a challenge to measure channel attribution against, how is marketing supporting that? And so I think with AI, there's a lot of new modeling that can be done that can help to reveal some of this for marketers.
Great. I'm going to ask a question for you guys that wasn't planned. Is there a mistake that you think your teams have made along the way that you've learned from? And maybe not a mistake, that's a sort of a strong word, but sort of a something you stumbled across that if you could now do it differently, or tell a younger version of yourself from a year or two ago, gosh, I wish I'd known that. And now I'm all the wiser for it. Does anything specifically come to mind of just oh gosh, I wish we had known that sooner?
Yeah, I can take this.
Yeah, sure.
So, as I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty proficient in all of the AI search measurement tools that are out there. And honestly, we spent too much time looking. We talked to like every single vendor out there. We should have just picked one, gone with it, and started measuring that visibility sooner. Was one of the things. I think I was trying to figure out if I could find the perfect tool, or the one that would really give us everything that we needed, instead of just, leaning in and going, okay, let's just, perfect is the enemy of good. Let's just get in there, start looking at the measurements, because that has ultimately really helped drive the content strategy behind it. And I wish we had done that sooner.
Very interesting. How about for you, more? For us, I'd go back to like kind of like I wish we also just are more. We were like more. We're always more careful also of like just the content we put out there, and that means of more like the more. There was a time where it's like more is more, right? And so it's like we have so much content now, and now like we also need more, I guess, time and energy and resource to also optimize all the content that we brought out there, and also unpublished things also that are not relevant anymore. So I think there's that also, I think, goes back to kind of quality over quantity.
Right. Last question for you is, how do you feel about the future in this area? Exciting, frightening? We got OpenAI talking about publishing APIs for commerce and things of this nature. And so, what do you think even the next 6 months, year is going to look like as you project how you think about what you have your team focus on?
Oh, this is such a hard one.
Right.
The other thing is OpenAI releasing ads. And
Yeah.
gosh, I think I saw a post this morning about Bing revealing more information around what prompts are out there. It's just so quickly changing. I find it to be incredibly exciting. I think, though, for people who are feeling a little overwhelmed about not being able to, have that crystal ball to see into the future, it is honestly all about content strategy, right? Just making sure that you have really high quality content that blankets not just your website, but like I said, out into those, third party, across social, on Reddit, on review sites. I think if you just kind of go back to the fundamentals and go back to basics, and that's what I'm actually really excited about, is this is forcing us to be better at our content strategy. And so, that's really where we're focused over the next year, regardless of what happens in the LLMs. But I personally am here for the agents journey, and I'm pretty excited to see how that morphs and shifts, and how the website morphs and shifts as part of that.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's a great insight. Mar, how about you?
Yeah, I'm very excited and hopeful. I think as we get more people, and like there's more information and data also on how AI search works. It's the same way like, many years ago when Google also started, right? There's not a lot of information there. And then that you started with like ads also. They had more like there's more dashboards also for it. I think that's where we're gonna head also, like with AI. And that's great because like we're able to then measure better. We'll be able to know also better like what to do next. And also just also will also create quality content, which is a win-win for everyone, for customers, for companies. And so I think it will just same with AI, that it will learn as you use it more. I think with AI search also, we will also learn as we use it more also.
Love it. Gosh, if I summarize just those last two pieces into the big takeaways, it's sort of quality content strategy as a key area of focus, and measure. Both of you had the similar themes of sort of you got to measure to know how you're doing. We're at the top of the hour. Thank you so much, Mar and Megan, for joining us today. I learned a lot for you. I hope the people in the webinar and this discussion have learned a lot too. Your expertise is just so exceptional, and we really appreciate you sharing this. Hopefully for people on, you're comfortable if they connect with you as well on LinkedIn and keep the discussion going. But we thank you so much for joining and for your sharing of your experiences. It's you made us all better for that. So really appreciate that. And I look forward to keeping the conversation going in the future. But thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining as well.